Pastor Jared here with another current event discussion. So today we're going to look at something I received in the mail from Stand to Reason. Here's the envelope. If you don't know what Stand to Reason is, you should. It is a great apologetic ministry led by Gregory Koukl and his great speaking staff, taking on the current apologetical and current issues and theological issues. And so today, I had gotten this in the mail, and it's a letter he wrote, and I just want to share it with you guys and show what just talk about it. So it says the secular world clearly controls the language game. Be careful you're not taken in by it. Let me show you what I mean. Now, we'll just stop there. Yes. What he means is that the culture defines how we use our words, that our current liberal, secular worldview, the left-leaning world, is choosing how words are used, and they are correcting the Christian world, the conservative world, saying, no, this is the right way you use it, wrong way you use your word. And so he's addressing a current issue that's big right now in church, which is how language is used. And he goes on and says, since critical race theory is the latest worldview counterfeit, consider this example of linguistic arm twisting. Someone says, if you say you're not a racist, that proves that you are a racist. How would you answer it? Now, that's a great question. How would you answer someone that says, oh, you deny you're racist? That just proves you're a racist because only a racist would deny it. And understand, let's see, all you Anglo-Saxon, white, American, evangelicals, you all have a racist where you're aware or not, and to deny it just proves you are a racist because you are in denial. And so the only answers is, well, you have to acknowledge you're racist. And so you can see this is play on words. The letter goes on to say, then it says, I expect you already seen the verbal sleight of hand, the ham-handed attempt at radical manipulation. If you admit you're a racist, you're a racist. If you deny you're racist, you're a racist. Racist if you do, racist if you don't. And that's what it feels like nowadays. No matter what, there's no right way to say it. That you're guilty no matter what you say. He goes on to says, even though the nonsense is obvious, and it should be obvious to us, the charge still catches good people off guard. What now? I have a tactic response to this challenge that I'll share with you in a moment. But first, let me show you what's going on. Okay, so what is it going to say? Near 75 years ago, and this is great, if you haven't read this, George Orwell wrote 1984, a dystopian novel about totalitarian world of mass surveillance and iron fist political cultural suppression. The despotism was better in part by Newspeak, a clever manipulation of language that Big Brother employed to obscure truth and to make it also impossible to think clearly about any issue opposing the party. And if you haven't read 1984, I encourage you to read it. I know I would encourage you to read 1984, but I would also encourage you to read Brave New World and also Fahrenheit 451. All these are all dystopian novels, but they all address this totalitarianism, this changing of language, a manipulation by big government and by the culture. And it's very important into understanding what's going on in this world. And 1984 does a brilliant job. So it's a little depressing for some people, but it is an important read. And very prophetic that he wrote it 75 years ago. And so I would encourage you to read it. Koukl goes on to explain Orwell work was prophetic, though the world he warned wouldn't begin to materialize until liberal democracies like ours until decades later than he predicted. Practice of manipulating language, confusing, or even signs of opposition used so effectively in Orwell's time by Stalin Russia and Nazi Germany is now standard fare. And we'll just stop there. That's important that this is not news. Any communist dictator has used these tactics. These are not new things. This is old tactics being repackaged into social justice, woke language. So this is not new thing. This is an old tactic. And if you've been paying attention to recent American history, you've been starting to see that more and more. But even back then, Nazi Germany and Soviet Russia used these same tactics. So he goes on to say, on our culture's version of Newspeak is abetting the creeping totalitarianism that Orwell feared. And yes, it's very creeping up on us. I'm just think about redefine gender, redefine sex, redefine race, redefine uh, uh, um, all sorts of things. There's even redefine of what pro-life is. Trying to make it incorporate things that have nothing to do with a pro-life perspective. Even the idea of pro-life and pro-choice, these are also word choices. I mean, really what it is if we were being clear, one is pro-abortion and one's anti-abortion. Those are clear word choices to clearly define what we're saying. And unfortunately, we've fallen the same trap of trying to adjust to the culture and such. But he goes on and says this. Uh, he's now dealing with you're a racist either way. Change is just one current example of the kind of nonsense used by our own culture through police to cloud our minds and confuse us. Racism exists, of course, and that's important. He doesn't deny racism exists, but claiming that whites are racist because they're white simply trivialize and genuine racial bigotry, and that's huge. Because so much what's going on right now is you actually are deminimizing what a racist really is. A racist really is someone who belittles and is um, uh, verbally attacks, physically attacks someone just because of their race. And that's really a racist. But now, since we have the trivialized version, we have uh, uh, these slight uh, racist things that really the term racism is now becoming meaningless and pointless because it doesn't have any meaning because now it incorporates so much of things and so it's really we no longer look at what true racism and we're looking for sleight of hand type stuff. So, what about our challenge that denying you're racist or bigoted or homophobic or transphobic or Islamophobic or whatever phobic you want to add to it just proves you're actually one. So, is that true? Is denying that you have proved that you are? And this is what he's going to say. He says, first, do not attempt to the banter with such a person. And this is true. People who hold this frame of logic where they say if you deny it, it proves that you are, that these people are irrational in their thought. And so you do not want to try to logic or reason with them because they don't even have a foundation for truth. So he says, don't try to banter with the person since it's uh, potentially ridiculous that thinking you're not a racist proves that you are. It's obvious to me no one who seriously offers this confused challenge can be reasoned with. That's true. They're creating as something that there's no way, no one should agree with, no one should agree to. This is just crazy idea that no one should agree to it. And so you can already tell this person is irrational. Um, so saying so would be in political, though. So instead of trying to slip under the radar and catch them by surprise using the taking off the roof tactic. Now, this is something he has in his book Tactics. If you ever got his book Tactics, you should have it. And basically, it's exposing the flaw of the reasoning. You instead of try to prove that you're not a racist, trying to prove that you're not homophobic, because to them, the more you deny it, the more you prove it. What you want to do is attack their line of reasoning, not the idea itself. And you're trying to show it that it can't hold water. And so use take off the roof tactic. Simply accept his approach, then turn his thought attack back on him. Effectively, counterexample abound. So you say, okay, if that's true, then what about this? And so he's going to give a couple of examples of how he might role play this. So you might say then, I knew you'd say that. I'm glad you did. So you say, I knew you'd say I'm a racist. So, and I'm glad you did. And the person said, well, what? Why? Why? Because it proves you're wrong. Huh? No one says that unless they're mistaken. Don't you see it? No. That even more proof that you're wrong. Sorry. And what he's going to do, I'll read the other two examples. What he's doing is he's using that same tactic of, I knew you were going to do that. It proves you're illogical. And the more you deny it, it proves that you are illogical, irrational. You're basically using that same logic against them to show that this is an irrational base of argument. So he then goes, do you think all whites are racist? Yes. That proves none are racist. Why? It's obvious. If you disagree, even more evidence that no one's racist. Again, he's playing on you're denying it. That proves there is no racist. The fact that you're pushing for it proves there are no racists. It's that same tactic used against them. And then the last example says, do you know what social justice means? Of course I do. That proves you don't. No one who really understands social justice thinks he understands it. Now, he's not saying that social justice doesn't exist. This is saying that racism exists. But what he's saying is you're using that same tactic against them. That their answer only proves your answer. It doesn't matter what they say. That you're right, and whatever they say proves you're right. Therefore, and so what it is you're using that same tactic. Because that's the same tactic you use that. Oh, you deny you're racist? That only proves you're a racist. Only a racist would deny it. Oh, you deny you're homophobic? But that only proves you are homophobic because only those who don't believe are homophobic. See, that's how they do it. We reverse the same tactic. Oh, you think there's racism in the world? That just proves there isn't racism in the world because only those who aren't really racist would say that there's racism in the world. And it's just to prove a faulty logic that just because someone denies something doesn't mean that is reality. And so this is what he does. He's just showing and taking off the roof and showing there's a faulty logic on their part. Now, as Gregory Koukl said, you do this with winsomeness, gentleness, and respect. You don't do this to be a gotcha. You're not doing this to catch him off guard. You're not doing it to gain points. You're doing this in a winsome, loving way to show there's something wrong with your line of logic and reasoning. He then goes on and says, like I said, nonsense. If your friends doesn't get when you use this tactic, don't waste time trying to enlighten him. Just let it go. He's confused, not you. And so what he's saying is if he doesn't understand, you flipping the same logic on them and don't get that it's nonsense that you just said. Because the key is they didn't say that's just ridiculous, that's just nonsense. And then you would say, exactly. That's why what you're saying is nonsense also. If they can't put those pieces together, then there's no reason to reason past that point because you just don't understand. Here's my point. Be alert for the linguistic baloney and don't be taken in by it. If it sounds silly, it probably is. Christians doesn't need verbal ruse like this, of course, because when someone has a sound, defensible idea, he doesn't need semantic tricks to make his case. A straightforward appeal to the evidence is all that clear thinking requires. And that's what we should do as Christians, as we present the Christian worldview, as we present what we believe and why we believe it. We don't do tricks. We don't do emotional manipulation. We just present the truth of the gospel. We give the reason for the gospel, the reason for scripture, the reason for God. And we don't need to play any word games to prove it. And then he finished up with appeal to support sound reason. And eventually, me and my wife will be doing that when we're in good financial thing. Right now, we're trying to save up some money, but eventually, we'd love to support them. But Stand to Reason, great organization. If you can support them, great. If not, they got tons of YouTube video. They do a podcast. They got great speakers. Highly recommend them. But Stand to Reason, I have to say, if you this article by Gregory Koukl is excellent. He great reasons, and he's just showing that the faultiness of this logic, and to try to help you expose that faulty logic. Now, we live such in a postmodern world. Now, some of you may not know what postmodern means, but postmodern means is basically that the only real knowledge is your own personal knowledge, and that there is no authority besides yourself. And because of that, that's why a lot of this is now coming up even more so. If we didn't have that postmodern logic keyed in, it would have been a lot harder. Now that since it's taught in our colleges, in our schools, postmodernism is taught. And I recently talked to a family member about this in the summer, and I was just trying to talk about objective truth. And she couldn't get it. She did not understand objective truth. I'd hold up a Lego and said, this Lego is, say, I think I would say it was red or green or blue. Don't remember what color. But this is the color of this Lego. And she said, well, that color is that color to you, but it's not that color to everyone. I said, no. I said, no, I'm not talking about my perception. I'm talking about the object. What is the color of the object, regardless of my perspective? And so we're looking for objective truth, not subjective truth. The postmodern world is all about subjective truth and is so embedded in it that when I was talking to this family member, they broke down in tears because they just did not know what to deal with it. And all I was trying to do is help them work through understanding what is objective truth. And this is the world that we're in. This is a world that our friends and family members are in. They're in a world where there's a postmodern world. You add that postmodern world with these ideas of totalitarian idea, playing word games, questioning gender, questioning authority, questioning and redefining terms and stuff. Those two are a nasty mix because one is eroding truth and the other one is redefining truth. And it's a very dangerous time. And so Stand to Reason and other ministries like that are essential for churches. Churches need to be engaging in apologetics and good apologetics, not bad stuff. Actual reasoning through the truth, being able to engage in philosophical arguments, being engaged in the culture, and yes, be able to engage and give biblical reasons. But we're in an era where postmodernism is huge, and so I just want to present this letter to you. I highly recommend it. I think it is a great letter. So hopefully you'll have a great week, and I pray that God bless blesses you this week. I pray that you have a great week and a great weekend. And if you like these videos, please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.